So you can sit there and you can continue to lie and I'm going to walk out and treat you like a piece of garbage. Or you can sit here and treat me with the respect that I treated you with, okay? And you can tell me the truth.
Yes.
What's your choice going to be?
Truth.
What drives a teenager to murder? In this video, we witness teen killers face life sentences, capturing their disbelief, defiance, and raw reactions. Discover the chilling stories behind these crimes and the intense courtroom moments that changed everything. Let's witness what unfolds when teenage killers face justice in its harshest form.
You are under arrest on suspicion of murder. Obviously you are under caution, so anything you say is getting recorded. Okay.
With me being suspect is because I was the last person seeing them all
And at Brianna's school, her head teachers said they would do their utmost for pupils at what she called a difficult and distressing time.
15-year-old Scarlett Jenkinson arrived at Birchwood High School in Warrington, England. At first glance, Scarlett appeared to be quiet and polite, but unbeknownst to most of her classmates, she had a dark history that would soon come to light. During the fall term of 2022, Scarlett found herself embroiled in controversy at her former school. Allegations emerged that she had brought cannabis edibles onto the playground, resulting in a child being hospitalized. Despite initial denials, the evidence against her was overwhelming, and she was soon expelled from her previous institution. Hoping for a fresh start, Scarlett transferred to Birchwood High School. Initially, she seemed a model student, performing well academically and maintaining a positive attitude. However, cracks began to appear, and it soon became apparent that Scarlett's attendance was slipping. As a result, the decision was made to send her back to her old school.
Brianna was 16 when she died. The court heard that although she was born male, she was living, dressing, and referring to herself as female. The girl who killed Brianna was fascinated by her.
At Birchwood, Scarlett met a 16-year-old girl named Brianna Ghey. Brianna was a remarkable person who had come out as transgender when she was in 8th grade. She had bravely embraced her identity, wearing pants instead of the uniform skirt and experimenting with wigs, before eventually transitioning to hair extensions and hormone treatment. As a trans girl, Brianna exuded confidence and pride and gained a significant following on TikTok.
Brianna, who suffered from anxiety, had texted her mother, "I'm on the bus by myself and I'm scared," as it was not a thing she would normally have done alone. "Well, that's well good," Miss Jai replied, proud that her daughter had got out of the house to socialize.
Even though Brianna received negative comments from certain people, Brianna remained strong and resilient. She found solace in her followers, who supported her and celebrated her authenticity. Despite the acceptance of her gender identity by peers at her high school, Brianna faced challenges with her mental health and a diagnosed eating disorder. The COVID-19 pandemic further exacerbated her difficulties, leaving her feeling isolated and alone. Brianna's mother described her as vulnerable, making her the perfect target for Scarlett Jenkinson. Due to Brianna's diagnosed learning disabilities, she had personalized lessons in Birchwood's inclusion room. It was in this room that Brianna and Scarlett initially connected. They shared a common bond, as they were ostracized by their peers and sought solace in each other's company. Over time, Brianna and Scarlett started spending their free time together. They would occasionally meet after school. However, Scarlett had a reason for befriending Brianna. Scarlett's true intentions were sinister. She had devised a plan to kill Brianna, and she needed an accomplice to carry out her disturbing scheme. Enter Eddie Ratcliffe, a 15-year-old boy who had known Scarlett since they first met in the 7th grade. Scarlett saw an opportunity to manipulate Eddie and recruit him into her deadly plot. She knew that Eddie's impressionable nature and lack of judgment made him the perfect pawn in her twisted game.
When Brianna Ghey left home on February the 11th, it was to be for the last time.
Fast forward to February 11th, 2023, and the plan was implemented. Scarlett spent hours convincing Brianna to meet her and Eddie at Colchester Linear Park in Warrington. Brianna, unsuspecting, agreed. As the clock struck 2 p.m., Scarlett and Eddie met Brianna at a bus stop on Warrington Road. The unsuspecting victim thought they were simply meeting up and spending time together. With Brianna in tow, Scarlett and Eddie led her into the secluded confines of the park. Scarlett and Eddie sprang into action as they reached a secluded park area. They ambushed Brianna, trapping her in a vulnerable position. With brutal force, they unleashed a relentless assault on her, leaving no room for escape or defense.
A 15-year-old boy and girl remain in custody. Brianna was transgender. Police say they have no evidence to suggest her death was hate-related.
Suddenly, a dog walker stumbled upon the scene. The stranger's sudden appearance caught Scarlett and Eddie off guard, causing them to panic and flee the scene. Panic and fear consumed them as they realized their plans had been disrupted.
It laid out how she'd be led to Linear Park in Culcheth in Warrington and what would happen when they got there. It was, the prosecution said, exactly what ultimately did happen.
Seeing something was wrong, the dog walker called the police at 3:13 p.m. Within minutes, officers were dispatched to the park to investigate. Upon their arrival, it became evident that Brianna had been subjected to a brutal assault. Paramedics arrived on the scene, desperately working to save her. However, their efforts were in vain. By 4:02 p.m., Brianna was pronounced dead.
In the days that followed Brianna's death, dozens of vigils were held across the country in her memory. A teenager who thought she was just going to the park for the afternoon.
According to her autopsy, Brianna had over 25 stab wounds concentrated on her neck, chest, and back. After witnesses came forward, the prime suspects quickly became Scarlett Jenkinson and Eddie Ratcliffe. Scarlett and Eddie were arrested and charged with Brianna's murder. To gather more evidence, searches were conducted in the homes of Scarlett and Eddie. The police seized their electronic devices, including Scarlett's phone and computer. When forensic experts downloaded the contents of Scarlett's phone and computer, a shocking revelation came to light. Scarlett harbored an unsettling obsession with murder and all things macabre.
Planned to kill Brianna 2 weeks earlier when the girl messaged the boy to say she's agreed to come to Culcheth tomorrow. The boy replied, "So I bring my knife?" The girl said yes. Is it definitely sharp enough, by the way?
The investigators discovered a handwritten note in Scarlett's bedroom that detailed her and Eddie's plan to kill Brianna. During their investigation, the detectives stumbled upon a series of text messages between Scarlett and Eddie. Through these messages, they learned that the two teams had attempted to murder Brianna earlier in the year. Scarlett confessed that she had given Brianna ibuprofen, which made her very sick but did not kill her.
In Scarlett's case, the aggravating features are significant and would have led to a substantial uplift to the starting point, but for the mitigation, particularly that relating to maturity and mental disorder.
After a 4-week trial on December 20th, 2023, Scarlett and Eddie were found guilty of murder. Scarlett was sentenced to serve a minimum of 22 years in prison, while Eddie received a term of 20 years. The judge labeled the killing as exceptionally brutal and accused Scarlett of displaying elements of sadism and transphobic hate. Detective Inspector Nigel Parr, who worked on the case, shared his thoughts on Scarlett and Eddie's lack of remorse.
When she was alone in that park with someone that she called her friend will haunt me forever. Prior to the trial, I had moments where I felt sorry for the defendants.
Scarlett's family expressed gratitude for Brianna's mother's selflessness and empathy throughout the ordeal. They acknowledged the unimaginable pain she had endured, sharing that their last year had been beyond their worst nightmare. During an inquest into Brianna's murder, Eddie's mother spoke to defend her son, stating that he was a good child with good morals and a loving, caring family supporting him. She emphasized that he was highly intelligent, well-behaved, and on track to apply to Oxford. Our next case involves Stoya Brown and exposes the devastating consequences of trauma and systemic failures in our justice system.
Cameras were rolling as she described cutthroat to a psychiatrist.
I remember one time, the first time he did something to me is when he choked me and I passed out because he said I thought he was a joke.
Tests would show Brown was on the fetal alcohol spectrum, a disorder that impacts the brain and behavior.
Stoya Brown was born to a mother struggling with drug addiction and faced a difficult journey from the start. Her mother, unable to care for her, made the difficult decision to give her up for adoption. She was adopted by loving parents.
What else did he do to you?
He talked real bad to me and jacked me up. He pulled me by my hair and dragged me and stuff. He put guns up me, told me to strap and stuff like that, getting that out of other people.
Unfortunately, Stoya's life was not without its challenges. As a young teen, she made a series of bad choices, leading to her being handed over to the custody of the Department of Children and Family Services. Stoya's determination to escape her circumstances led her to run away, leaving her homeless on the streets of Nashville.
She granted Berman access to the then teenager all the way through her criminal trial.
During her tumultuous time on the streets, Stoya encountered a ruthless predator. This individual, taking advantage of her vulnerability, started to traffic her. On August 6, 2004, Stoya's fateful encounter with Johnny Allen, a 43-year-old real estate agent and Sunday school teacher, would change her life forever.
I think he's gonna hit me or do something like that, but then he rolls over and reaches, like he's reaching to the side of the bed or something, so I'm thinking, no, he's not finna hit me, he's finna get a gun.
And what did you do at that time?
I just grabbed the gun and I shot him.
Stoya claims she agreed to engage in intercourse with Johnny for $150. But according to her testimony, the deed never happened. At some point, she thought Johnny was reaching for his weapon. Terrified, Stoya reached for the gun Johnny had hidden in his nightstand and shot him in the back of the head, killing him instantly. Panic-stricken, Stoya stole $172 from Johnny, as well as 2 guns. She then fled the scene in his truck. Despite Stoya's young age, the courts decided to try her as an adult, which sparked debate. The Metro Juvenile Court judge justified their decision by saying it was too great a risk to the community to keep Stoya in the juvenile system. Stoya alleged she killed Johnny in self-defense. She said Johnny had intimidated her by standing over her while she was in his bed. However, the prosecution argued that when Johnny was found, he was in a sleeping pose, casting doubt on her self-defense claim. They alleged that Stoya killed Johnny as he slept in bed to rob him. During Stoya's trial, 3 inmates who had spent time with her in prison testified that Stoya confessed to killing Johnny Allen. These inmates claimed that Stoya admitted the murder and even expressed satisfaction in taking another human being's life. Another inmate came forward with a letter allegedly written by Stoya. In the letter, Stoya supposedly admitted to lying to the police about certain aspects of the case. She allegedly stated that everything she had told police was true, except for one crucial detail: her belief that Johnny was reaching for a gun. To further complicate matters, a forensic document expert testified in his opinion regarding the letter. He stated that the note written by Stoya appeared to be authentic and consistent with her handwriting. This revelation left the jury questioning the credibility of Stoya's statements.
60 years behind bars. Even with good behavior, Brown would have to serve at least 51 years before any chance of parole.
Yeah, it's over with now.
Stoya's defense argued that Johnny had planned to sexually assault Stoya if she did not kill him in self-defense. They presented witnesses who testified that Johnny had a dark side and had previously engaged in inappropriate behavior towards women. One witness claimed that Johnny took her to his home, kissed her against her will, and when she told him she didn't want to be intimate, he assaulted her.
Allen's murder, Brown was eventually charged, tried, and convicted as an adult.
Guilty, first-degree murder.
The jury ultimately found Stoya guilty of first-degree murder, felony murder, and aggravated robbery, leading to her receiving a life sentence. This sentence was particularly shocking, considering Stoya's age at her conviction. In 2018, the Tennessee Board of Parole held a hearing on Stoya's clemency petition. This hearing allowed witnesses who knew Stoya to testify on her behalf.
I just wanted to say thank you. I know a lot of people get to see you, but I have prayed for a very long time.
Stoya's hearing took place on May 28, 2018, with Stoya's fate hanging in the balance. After months of deliberation, on January 7, 2019, Stoya's sentence of life in prison was commuted to 15 years plus 10 years of supervised parole. This significant decision marked a turning point in Stoya's life, offering her a chance at rehabilitation and reintegration into society. The judge presiding over the case stated that transformation should be accompanied by hope, echoing the importance of second chances and the potential for redemption. Johnny's family, devastated by the loss of their son, strongly disagreed with the decision to allow Stoya to walk free. They believed that justice had not been served and that her life sentence should have been upheld. The officers involved in the case shared the same sentiment, believing that Stoya's release was a miscarriage of justice.
She is someone that has completely rehabilitated herself.
The president granted Johnson's pardon, saying those who pay their debt to society and better themselves in prison deserve a second chance.
Since her release, Stoya Brown has become a prominent figure, using her voice to raise awareness about domestic minor sex trafficking and the criminal justice system's treatment of young offenders. She has been the featured keynote speaker for different groups nationwide, captivating audiences with her story of survival and resilience. As we turn from the chilling case of Stoya Brown, prepare to meet Amber Wright.
Family showed baby pictures of Seth. Kyle Hooper himself took the stand.
15-year-old Seth Jackson lived in Bellevue, Florida, and dated 15-year-old Amber Wright for 3 months. However, unbeknownst to Seth, Amber had also been seeing 18-year-old Michael Bargo. This love triangle created intense jealousy and resentment, becoming a full-blown toxic dynamic between Seth and Amber. In March 2011, Seth and Amber decided to end their relationship. However, since this was the age of social media, Facebook played a crucial role in the aftermath. Both Seth and Amber took shots at one another, exchanging insults and fueling the flames of their broken relationship.
And then Amber Wright started dating Michael Bargo.
When Amber was with Michael, she would lie and tell him that Seth had harmed her. This false information enraged Michael, and on one particular day, he confronted Seth in their yard, threatening him with, "I have a bullet with your name on it."
And Michael Bargo started talking about we need to kill Seth Jackson. Nobody likes him. We need to kill him.
On April 17, 2011, Michael approached Amber's brother, 16-year-old Kyle Hooper, and told him that they needed to kill Seth Jackson. Michael then recruited 20-year-old Justin Soto and 18-year-old Charlie Ely to assist him in the murder plot.
He was shot once, but he got out and he made it almost to the road.
That night, Amber reached out to Seth, urging him to meet her at Charlie's house. Seth, sensing a trap, hesitated at first, but Amber reassured him that they just wanted to discuss the possibility of getting back together. Eventually, Seth relented. When he arrived, he was immediately attacked by Kyle, who struck him on the head with a wooden object. Amber and Charlie watched from the sidelines as Michael emerged armed, aiming a .22 caliber gun at Seth. In a shocking turn of events, Michael opened fire, wounding Seth. Despite suffering injuries, Seth managed to escape the confines of the trailer and reach safety outside. However, Justin tackled him. Still armed with his gun, Michael pursued Seth and shot him again. Weak and disoriented, Seth managed to reach safety outside Charlie's trailer. However, Justin and Michael promptly brought him back inside, restraining him in the bathtub. Michael continued to shoot at Seth, aiming for his face, eventually killing him.
They burned the body, and to me what made it atrocious is that they sat out there and basically treated it as if a bonfire was a party. All of them sat outside.
Michael and Justin took Seth's lifeless body and put it in a sleeping bag, and then threw it into a fire. They watched as flames consumed the body, eventually erasing any trace of their crimes. The group used bleach to clean the crime scene and shoveled the remains from the fire into 3 buckets. Amber Wright and Kyle Hooper's mother's boyfriend played a crucial role in covering up the crime, taking the buckets of Seth's remains and transporting them to a rock quarry in Ocala, Florida.
I mean, people are gonna fucking hate us for this. People that don't even know us are gonna be looking for us if we get out of this.
Why?
There's a fucking 15-year-old kid murdered.
After Seth's disappearance made the news, Kyle Hooper confessed to the murder, realizing the severity of the situation. Despite initially feigning ignorance, the 3 accomplices, when alone in the interrogation room, made incriminating statements that led detectives to the conclusion that they all played a significant role in what happened.
Have Mom in here while you talk to me about it? That's okay with you? Okay. Okay, Seth comes to the house.
Seth knocked on the door and Charlie answered it, and she was like, well, what do you want?
Everyone involved in Seth's murder was subsequently arrested, with Michael Bargo being sentenced to death. Amber, her brother Kyle, Charlie Ely, and Justin Soto were sentenced to life in prison. Amber's mother's boyfriend pleaded guilty to accessory after the fact, acknowledging his role in the cover-up. Amber was retried for Seth's murder in 2016 after an appellate court raised questions about the timing of her Miranda rights during the initial trial. Despite the guilty verdict, there was hope for a lighter sentence due to a technicality. However, the judge ultimately decided that Amber would continue to serve a life sentence, with the possibility of review in 25 years. Throughout the trial, Amber's family and prison ministry spoke glowingly about her personal growth and transformation since being behind bars. Amber herself addressed the judge, expressing her guilt and remorse for her actions. She assured the court that she was committed to becoming a better person.
Our lives will never be the same, as we will never see our son grow up or have children.
The events leading to the death of Seth Jackson were described as nothing short of despicable by the judge. Amber's actions left a lasting impact on Seth's family, and their pain was evident when they addressed Amber directly. Sonia Jackson, Seth's mother, expressed her hope that Amber would experience a lifetime of guilt, knowing that she had caused so much pain. Next, Julia Egler, a troubled teen, embarked on a deadly rampage, claiming the lives of her own mother and her boyfriend.
What could be the motive behind what is truly a brutal, premeditated crime? It's kind of hard to comprehend why a daughter would kill her own mother, but what makes it even more confusing and disturbing is the disconnect.
In July 2024, a shocking incident unfolded when 16-year-old Julia Egler called 911 to report an intruder breaking into her home. The dispatcher quickly sprang into action, attempting to gather as much information as possible. Julia described the alleged intruder as normal height,
telling police it was that intruder who shot the teen's mother, 42-year-old Kelly McCollum, and McCollum's boyfriend, 22-year-old Matthew Zenrock, before eventually changing the story under pressure from detectives.
As the situation escalated, Julia revealed a shocking turn of events. The intruder, she discovered, had gained entry by using a hammer in their backyard. Julia said she acted swiftly, grabbing the dogs and taking them to her room. However, as time went on, Julia started to panic. She informed the dispatcher that her mother, Kelly McCollum, and her mother's boyfriend, Matthew Zenrock, had been out shopping, and she anxiously awaited their return.
I had to make a 911 operator believe someone had just broke into her house. In reality, Palm Bay police say 16-year-old Julia Egler had just brutally murdered her mother and her mother's boyfriend.
Minutes later, police officers arrived to find the horrifying scene. Kelly and Matthew lay lifeless, covered in blood. The detectives began their investigation, meticulously piecing together the clues leading them closer to the truth. One name stood out as the investigation progressed: Kelly's teen daughter, Julia.
Bombay were victims of a horrible crime. 38-year-old Kelly McCollum and 22-year-old Matthew Snedrock were found dead by police just after midnight on July 7th.
The detectives quickly identified Julia as a potential suspect, and the evidence seemed to point in her direction. One of the turning points in the case came when investigators found a bloody shoe print impression that matched a pair that Julia owned. This discovery raised suspicions and cast doubt on her initial claim that an intruder was responsible. As the investigators examined the CCTV footage from the house's security cameras, they saw that the footage showed no intruder entering the house after Kelly and Matthew arrived home that night. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Julia finally confessed to the murders of her mother and her boyfriend. Julia explained that she had an issue with her mother dating Matthew, and she had decided to take action. On the day of the murders, Julia devised a plan to take her mother's gun and a knife from the kitchen. She then waited for the perfect opportunity to strike.
Greeting the couple with, "Welcome home," with the gun in the teen's hand and the knife in the teen's right pants pocket.
When her mother and Matthew arrived home, Julia eagerly awaited her moment. Julia unleashed her pent-up anger as her mother and Matthew opened the door. She shouted, "Welcome home," before shooting her mother several times. However, Julia's rage was far from sated. She turned her attention to Matthew, firing several shots in his direction. Matthew, terrified for his life, begged her to stop. Julia followed him into the bathroom, armed with a knife. She relentlessly stabbed him after the gun ran out of ammo. As time went on, Matthew's condition deteriorated. He begged Julia to take him out of his misery. Julia obliged. She walked into her mother's bedroom, loaded another round into the gun, and returned to the bathroom with the weapon in her hand. In the bathroom, Matthew lay helpless and weak. Julia, still consumed by her rage, pulled the trigger, delivering a final, devastating blow. A gunshot rang out, killing Matthew instantly. Julia was indicted by a grand jury and arraigned on 2 counts of first-degree murder. Julia's case is complex. A public defender currently represents her and has yet to enter a plea. Her future remains uncertain as she awaits the court's verdict. Another crucial factor impacting her sentence is that she will be tried as an adult.
And there have been apparently disagreements about Egler's decision to change genders.
One key difference between Florida's juvenile and adult justice systems is the focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment. Juvenile courts aim to address the specific needs and circumstances of the juvenile offender, considering factors such as age, maturity, and potential for rehabilitation. This allows the court to consider alternative sentencing options, such as probation or community service, rather than incarceration. While Julia Egler's crimes were severe, 16-year-old Dylan Shoemaker's are far more chilling. He targeted a defenseless 1-year-old baby, making her actions pale in comparison.
Austin Smith was killed last week, just days shy of his 2nd birthday.
16-year-old Dylan Shoemaker is accused of murdering Smith, who would have turned 2.
In March 2013, Dylan Shoemaker, a 16-year-old, was babysitting his girlfriend's son, Austin Smith, who was nearly 2 years old. Austin's birthday was just 4 days away, but unfortunately he would never celebrate his 3rd birthday. According to Austin, he lost his cool with the toddler, leading to a horrific chain of events.
Tonight we get our first look at the 16-year-old who's accused of killing a little boy in Springville.
At his trial, Dylan claimed that he became frustrated with Austin and resorted to slapping him, spanking him, and ultimately slamming the boy into the floor. As if that weren't enough, Dylan proceeded to punch the toddler in the head several times, all in an attempt to get the child to stop crying. The injuries sustained by Austin proved to be fatal, with his cause of death being ruled as blunt force trauma.
Deputies upon arrival immediately noted the bruising about the face and head of the child.
Dylan Shoemaker was arrested and faced charges of 2nd-degree murder and 1st-degree assault. He entered a not guilty plea. In December 2013, Dylan faced trial for the murder of Austin Smith. The tragic incident had left everyone in shock and disbelief.
I didn't mean to kill Austin. Ashley, I really didn't think I did that. I didn't mean to hurt him.
As the trial began, Dylan's defense attorney made a plea to the jury to find Dylan guilty on a lesser charge, which would have given Dylan freedom someday. Yet, despite the defense's best efforts, the jury returned a verdict of 2nd-degree murder. At the sentencing hearing, Dylan was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison.
Dylan Shoemaker walked into a state Supreme courtroom pleading his case, telling his victim's mother and the court he's remorseful for what he did.
When the verdict was read, relatives of baby Austin cried from the gallery. Austin Smith's grandmother even expressed sympathy for Dylan, saying he was only 16 and his life was now over before it even started.
Shoemaker and his defense attorney fought for the minimum sentence, 15 years to life.
I can't take back what was done. I wish I could. I would give my life for Austin.
According to Dylan's attorney, Dylan was subdued after hearing that he had been found guilty of second-degree murder. However, a news report from Buffalo News paints an entirely different picture of this young murderer. The state Supreme Court justice who sentenced Dylan admitted that he had 13 letters written by witnesses and relatives who called Dylan a manipulator and deceiver. These letters revealed him to be a cunning and manipulative young man, completely different from what was presented during the trial. Further, in a viral video, Dylan claimed because he was a blonde, all he needed to do was cry for a lenient sentence. Next, we encounter Janine Gonzalez, a story where betrayal takes on a new meaning and trust is shattered in ways you wouldn't believe.
I will murder you. I will murder you. I will murder you. I will murder you. I will murder you.
On August 11, 2022, a tragic incident occurred in Gwinnett County, Georgia, when 30-year-old Ashley Bocanegra was rushed to the hospital. According to her sister, when Ashley arrived, she was experiencing difficulty breathing and was airlifted to another facility for emergency surgery. Unfortunately, she didn't make it, succumbing to her injuries. An investigation ensued, and detectives discovered that Ashley had been the victim of a brutal assault that led to severe injuries. Her ribs were fractured and her liver was damaged, ultimately leading to her death. The detectives' investigation led them to an apartment complex in Beaufort, Georgia, where they apprehended two suspects: 27-year-old Antonetta Stevens from Beaufort and 17-year-old Janine Gonzalez from New York.
We just got another call about it. So I guess the girl went to the hospital and she died.
She died.
She's dead.
Antonetta told detectives that she was dating Janine's brother, only to discover that he and Ashley had been in a romantic relationship. And not only had her boyfriend been cheating on her, but he had a 7-year-old child with Ashley. According to Antonetta and Janine, an altercation began when Ashley arrived at the apartment complex looking for Janine's brother. However, when the detectives review Antonetta and Janine's cell phones, the images, videos, and text messages tell a different story. The evidence suggests that Ashley's killing was far more deliberate than the two initially claimed.
Yep, this is what we do. If I get mad and he knows I'm leaving, he feels sad. He says, I'll let you her up. That's what I'm doing. You up. All right, tell me everything. Hey, you got it. Get up. Nope.
The text messages on Antonetta and Janine's phones shed light on their planning and orchestration of the crime. It became clear that they had lured Ashley to their apartment under the pretext of meeting Janine's brother. Once Ashley arrived, Antonetta and Janine confronted her and secretly recorded the entire incident.
No, you ain't got. You don't get to say so. My man, right? You want to be in front of my man, right? Right? You his manager? I'm getting you fired. That's bias. Okay, so that's a conflict of interest.
Captured by the girl's cell phone, the video begins with Janine being filmed as Antonetta advances towards Ashley. With brutal force, Antonetta grabs hold of Ashley's hair and forcibly pushes her down. As Ashley struggles to regain her bearings, Antonetta repeatedly punches her in the face, causing her to cry out in pain.
You're my while he's on the clock. My going there trying to ruin his family. He has a whole son. You're mad for him? Okay.
Janine is then seen joining in on the violence, delivering a series of kicks to Ashley's side. Throughout the ordeal, Janine can be heard taunting Ashley, threatening to kill her no fewer than 5 times.
Are you sure? You know? Yeah.
So Antoinette just sent the message
I'm
first?
positive myself. I'm positive. But yeah, I don't know if there's any messages sent to that lady.
Janine Gonzalez and Antonetta Stevens were charged with robbery, battery, and felony murder. When the detectives confronted Janine, despite her being only 17 years old, she displayed a cold and callous demeanor. She laughed even though an innocent woman was dead and her nephew, only 7 years old, was left without a mother.
Janine Gonzalez started her court appearance in tears before a Gwinnett County police officer laid out the murder charge against her.
During one of Janine's pretrial hearings, she was visibly distressed as the judge laid the case against her. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and the prosecution was determined to prove that Janine was not only an accomplice, but also a willing participant in the murder of Ashley. Janine's defense attorneys argued that she was a bystander, but the clear imagery on the video contradicted these claims. The footage clearly showed Janine actively participating in the assault, leaving no room for doubt as to her involvement.
Gonzalez's attorney argued that she was practically a bystander.
Given that, I think the case ought to be bound over as involuntary manslaughter and not as felony murder.
Janine's defense team also argued that she should be tried for involuntary manslaughter rather than felony murder. However, the prosecution had strong evidence from Ashley's text messages that implicated Janine in the assault. In a message to her boyfriend, Janine's brother, Ashley wrote, "I was fine until your sister kicked me in the chest and back area." The message provided a crucial link between Janine and the injuries sustained by Ashley. Despite the efforts of Janine's attorneys, she was eventually convicted of voluntary manslaughter and robbery by force. Alongside Antonetta, Janine was sentenced to serve a 20-year sentence in Arundel State Prison. Next up, two teens who took the lives of their own grandparents without a clear motive prepare for a case that defies all reason.
All right, Ms. Brogue, you are charged with 2 felony warrants for murder, 2 felony warrants for aggravated assault.
On April 8, 2017, Gwinnett County, Georgia experienced the shocking and brutal double murders of 63-year-old Randall and Wendy Bjorg. The two were grandparents to 17-year-old Cassandra Bjorg. They had gotten legal custody because she had issues with her parents. Despite the grandparents' best efforts to give Cassandra a good life, she became more troubled and would run away from home from time to time. She also brought home drugs and assaulted her grandmother on multiple occasions. She also had a boyfriend, 19-year-old Johnny Ryder, who she ran away with many times. The couple were described as volatile and toxic. Eventually, they committed worse crimes. On April 8th, the police responded to an assault case in a home in Lawrenceville, and the victims identified the attackers as Johnny Ryder and Cassandra Bjorg. The two of them had attacked Johnny's sister and her boyfriend with a baseball bat and pepper spray before escaping. The car they used to escape belonged to Wendy and Randall, and this led the police to force their way into the home, as they expected the worst. To their horror, they found the bodies of Wendy and Randall. The two of them had been stabbed multiple times. Their autopsies showed that they had suffered blunt force to the head and various cuts around their throats. Everyone was horrified that something like that had happened in their community. Cassie and Johnny became the main suspects in the case, and a day after the Bjorgs were found, their granddaughter and her boyfriend were found after they barricaded themselves inside an apartment. They refused to come out, and by the time the SWAT team was able to get a visual, they found out that the teens were injured in the bathroom as they had tried to commit suicide. They failed at this attempt and were taken to the hospital. The two of them were charged with the murders of Cassie's grandparents. The interrogation revealed some shocking details that showed that the murder had been premeditated.
Seems that you're sorry you got caught, that you had people over after. You don't seem to be sorry that you killed your grandparents.
Cassie told the police that they had planned to murder her grandparents and keep their bodies from being discovered. According to Cassandra, she and Johnny waited until her grandparents were asleep before entering their bedroom, duct taping and attacking them. The murder weapons included a tire iron, a baseball bat, a hammer, and butcher knives. The two of them beat and stabbed the Bjorgs to death. What's even more horrific is that after the murders, Cassandra sealed the windows and doors with caulk to keep the smell of the decomposing bodies from coming out.
And then we came back to the house.
When you guys left, where'd you guys go to?
We went over to like Kroger or Publix to go get something to eat, and then we went back to the house and we just kind of like chilled there.
Which one?
It was like on Old Peachtree.
Johnny and Cassie then ordered takeout and invited their friends to the house for a party. She also said that they smoked a lot of weed to mask the smell of the bodies, as they were in the house for more than a week.
Things like just seemed different. They didn't look at me the same anymore. Like they didn't, I don't know. It's like the vibe that they have was like they didn't really know what to do. They didn't really know like how to be around me. I guess they didn't really know how to talk to me.
The motive for the murder was shocking. Cassie said she killed her grandparents because they were too strict. She also said that her grandparents weren't the only intended victims. According to her, she and Johnny had planned to kill Johnny's family and Cassandra's mother. They both took a plea deal and didn't go to trial. Both of them were sentenced to 2 life sentences, each with the possibility of parole after 60 years. When the two heard their sentences, their reactions were different from each other. While Johnny apologized for what he did, Cassie was said to have been crying and refused to say anything even when she was given the chance to speak. The two would be eligible for parole in 2077. This next case of Gavin Smith reveals a shocking tragedy, taking the lives of 4 innocent people.
There's days that I do anything to take it back.
On December 13, 2020, the bodies of 4 people were found in Elkview, West Virginia. 39-year-old Risa Saunders Long, 37-year-old Daniel Long, 12-year-old Gage Ripley, and 3-year-old Jameson Long. The 4 members of the family were fatally shot. The perpetrator, 16-year-old Gavin Smith. the people who were murdered were Gavin's mother, his stepfather, and his 2 younger brothers. All 5 of them had been in the house because of COVID-19 curfews and restrictions. According to Gavin, the pressure in the house was overbearing because his parents were strict and had too many rules on everything ranging from food to screen time. Gavin decided to murder his parents after they forbade him from seeing his 17-year-old girlfriend, Rebecca Walker. Gavin Smith waited until his family was asleep before he shot his parents and 12-year-old brother in the head. Before he did this, he was on a video call with Rebecca. At first, it seemed like Gavin had hung up to commit the murders, but evidence later showed that the video call was still ongoing when he murdered his family. After he shot them, he continued to talk to Rebecca until he heard his 3-year-old brother crying from under his crib where he was hiding. He then went to look for him before shooting him in the head as well. After he committed the murder, he went to Rebecca's house, and she hid him for 4 days until the police found him. Gavin was arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of second-degree murder, and use of a firearm during the commission of a felony.
You do grant this alternate sentence Mr. Sullivan's talking about, you won't have an issue on me because I never was involved with it all until December of 2020.
After he was charged to court, Gavin apologized for his actions and said that he would take it back if he could. He also asked for leniency. Despite this, the judge believed that he showed no remorse for his actions because what he did was evil. Judge Kenneth Ballard also said that the only reason he was sentencing Gavin with mercy was because Smith had committed the murders as a minor.
Executed your mother and stepfather by shooting them in the head while they were asleep. Then you executed your 2 brothers by shooting them in the head, youngest which was hiding under his crib. Your actions can only be described as an act of pure evil. Evil.
Eventually, Smith was sentenced to 3 life sentences for the first-degree murder of his mother, stepfather, and 3-year-old brother, 40 years for the murder of his 12-year-old brother, and 10 years for the use of a firearm. Gavin will be eligible for parole after 15 years, but he may never be granted. While Gavin Smith faces 3 life sentences, the next case takes it to another level. A teen who murdered her own mother.
She was having a mental health crisis.
She doesn't know what was going on at that time. We're asking you to find her not guilty by reason of insanity.
Prosecutors say she shot her mother, Ashley Smiley, a 40-year-old high school math teacher, in the face.
On March 19, 2024, a friend of 14-year-old Carly Gregg reached out to Ashley Smiley, Carly's mother, expressing concerns about her daughter's excessive use of marijuana. The friend revealed that Carly had been indulging in the drug and using burner cell phones, raising alarms about their well-being. Determined to act, Ashley decided to confront her daughter about the rumors. After speaking to Carly's friend, Ashley made her way to Carly's bedroom. What she discovered there shocked her. Several vape pens lay scattered across the bedroom. Alarmed, Ashley quickly wanted answers.
The jury seeing 5 days of disturbing evidence, including this surveillance video. First, you see Gregg with a gun behind her back, pacing around the home.
That afternoon, security camera footage from inside the home captured a chilling scene. Carly, dressed in a Nirvana t-shirt, moved around the house, seemingly hiding something behind her back. It turned out to be a .357 Magnum handgun. As Carly walked out of view from the camera, the sound of 3 gunshots shattered the silence. The footage then showed Carly rushing back to the kitchen, where she sat calmly on the stool at the counter. She took out her phone and texted a friend, asking them to come over because there was an emergency. When Carly's friends arrived at the house, Carly asked them if they had ever seen a dead body. Without further explanation, Carly took them into her mother's bedroom, where Ashley lay lifeless, her face soaked in blood. According to this friend, Carly confessed that her stepfather, Heath Smiley, was next on her list. Using her dead mother's phone, Carly, pretending to be her mother, sent a message to Heath. The message read, "When will you be home, honey?" Little did Heath know that this message was a carefully crafted trap.
Her stepfather, Heath Smiley, coming home moments later, Gregg also shooting him.
When Heath arrived at the front door, Carly ambushed him, shooting her stepfather in the shoulder. Despite the injury, Heath managed to take control of the situation. He overpowered Carly and took the gun away from her, ultimately saving his own life. In a panic, Heath called for help. Police officers arrived swiftly, along with paramedics. Carly was arrested on the spot. As investigators delved into Carly's background, they discovered a diary that shed light on her darkest thoughts. The journal revealed a list of beliefs that painted a chilling picture of Carly's twisted mind. Among these beliefs were statements such as, "There is no God," "It's okay to be evil," and "There is no need for family." The prosecution offered Carly a 40-year plea deal before her trial. However, she declined the offer. Carly's case quickly gained media attention, and the trial commenced 6 months later, in September 2024.
Tonight, a Mississippi teen sentenced to life in prison without parole for murdering her mother and attempting to kill her stepfather.
During the trial, the prosecution presented a compelling argument, painting Carly Gregg as a calculating and cold-hearted killer. They alleged that Carly intentionally shot and killed her mother, Ashley, after Ashley discovered her secret marijuana use. The prosecution described Carly as a dangerous young lady who showed no remorse for her actions and planned the attack on her stepfather.
We, the jury, sentenced the defendant Carly Madison Gregg to life imprisonment.
The defense, on the other hand, presented a different narrative to the court. They claimed that Carly was in the midst of mental health struggles at the time of the crimes. A psychiatrist testified that Carly's mood swings were exacerbated by the medication she was taking. This psychiatrist argued that Carly's actions were not premeditated, but were driven by her unstable mental state. According to the psychiatrist, Carly's mental health struggles played a significant role in her violent actions. To support this claim, the defense presented Carly's journals as evidence, which revealed a young woman in mental turmoil.
I need to get some information from you. What is her name again?
Carly, C-A-R-L-Y.
C-A-R-L-Y?
Carly Madison.
During the trial, the prosecution presented the body cam footage captured by the police officers at the scene. The video depicted the chaotic aftermath of the murders as officers arrived at the scene and conducted their investigation. Carly sat at the defense table. She stared intently, her eyes fixed on the screen. As Carly watched the footage, tears welled up in her eyes. The once composed and confident teenager was overcome with emotion. One of the key witnesses in Carly's trial was her stepfather, Heath.
Went off in my face before the door was, 3 or 4 inches wide open.
Heath testified about the tragic events that led to his wife's murder. He stated that despite Carly's actions, he still had a good relationship with her. This statement shocked the public, as it seemed incomprehensible that he could maintain a bond with someone who had shot him and taken the life of his wife. In their closing argument, the prosecution reminded the jury that Carly knew the difference between right and wrong when she committed the murder. After careful consideration, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours before delivering their verdict. They returned a guilty verdict, finding Carly guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Carly, who was only 15 years old, was found guilty of first-degree murder. Speaking to WLBT in an exclusive interview, Kevin Gregg, Carly's biological father, said he was embarrassed, angry, upset, and very sad about his daughter's actions. Currently, Carly is being held in the Youthful Offender Unit at the Central Mississippi Correctional Facility. The defense attorneys have indicated that they plan to appeal Carly's conviction. However, given the severity of her crime and the public outcry, it seems unlikely that the appeal will successfully overturn the verdict. In this next case, Joshua Coleman, a 15-year-old boy, seemed to have a normal upbringing. However, beneath the surface, things were not as they appeared. Deasia Green, a 15-year-old girl, was a chronic runaway, often disappearing for days. However, when her parents reported her missing in early January 2013, the police knew something was different this time. Her parents gave the authorities detailed information, hoping to bring her home safely.
Last year, Toledo police found the 15-year-old girl dead in an alley in the 1300 block of Page.
Just 6 days after she was reported missing, Deasia's lifeless body was found in an alley. She had been shot once in the head. The police were immediately called to investigate, and a crime scene was quickly established. Through their investigation, the police obtained a crucial eyewitness account. This witness claimed a 15-year-old boy named Joshua Coleman was the one who fatally shot Deasia.
As Green's mother asked him why he killed her daughter.
Why would Joshua do this to her? She didn't deserve it. She was a social butterfly. She didn't deserve it.
4 days after the discovery of Deasia's body, Joshua was arrested and charged with murder and felonious assault. He was swiftly indicted as an adult, a decision that shocked many given the age of both victim and perpetrator. According to sources, Deasia and Joshua had been dating shortly before her death. Joshua Coleman's attorneys and prosecutors eventually reached an agreement. The prosecution agreed to drop the charges of felonious assault and the gun specifications in exchange for Joshua receiving a life sentence, but being eligible for parole in 2039. During the sentencing hearing, the prosecution told the court the motive for Joshua's shooting of Deasia was never determined.
The last time I seen my baby was December 31st. That was the last day I seen my baby. The last time, y'all.
Deasia's mother delivered a devastating victim impact statement. She described Deasia as a social butterfly, full of life and joy. Throughout the trial, Joshua remained silent, only answering yes and no questions from the judge. His lack of remorse further enraged Deasia's loved ones.
In her murder later this month, he was sentenced to 15 years to life behind bars.
During the sentencing phase, the judge asked Joshua if he wanted to give a statement or explain the motive behind the shooting. However, Joshua declined, leaving many unanswered questions. Without the eyewitness's testimony, there may never have been justice for Deasia. The police, acknowledging this witness's crucial role, credited that person for their bravery and determination. It was the eyewitness's testimony that ultimately led to Joshua's conviction. The impact of these teenage killers is undeniable, but their reactions are just the beginning. Prepare for more shocking stories and unforgettable courtroom moments in the next video.